The Wild Huntsboys by Martin Stewart. Up the airy mountain, down the rushy glen, we daren't go a-hunting for fear of little men. The Faeries by William Allingham. No rain but thunder and the sound of giants. Hellboy, The Wild Hunt by Mike Mignola. Part 1. Chapter 1. The fairy folk are glad to help, they're glad to lend a hand. They'll keep the milk and shine the silk, they're noble and they're grand. They'll gladly churn your butter, or they'll polish up the wood. They'll even buff the silver, oh, they really are so good. A traditional song, author unknown. "How do you make a plane out of a frying pan?" said Elena, leaping onto the pavement. Luka caught up to her, gripping Hugo's collar. "You melt it down," he said. "Then, when it's all runny, you turn it into something else. Plane, tank, bomb, whatever." "What about the handle?" Luka brushed at his jacket. It was thick with demolition dust, just like the rest of him. There had been more raids in the last week, and the fog of broken bricks was everywhere. He checked his phone, then dropped it in his pocket as an army jeep buzzed past. "What?" he said. Elena wrinkled her nose. "Like, our frying pan's got a plastic handle, so—" "God, Ellie, I don't know. The government's run out of metal, so they're taking ours, all right?" They looked at the trucks that lined North Street, their deep, clattering bellies piled high with pots, pans, spoons, knives, benches, bathtubs, and bikes. There were even radiators sticking out of the heaps like broken teeth. "It's scary," said Elena. Luka shrugged. "It's just stuff." But his sister shook her head, bouncing her dark ponytail against his elbow. "It's not," she said. "It's people. People lived with these things and painted them and hung their pants on them. Imagine if we—" A city warden stepped into the road, the winter sun shining white behind his square helmet. Elena shuffled under Luka's arm while Hugo growled deep in his chest. The warden banged a passing truck's flank like he was spurring a horse. As the thing rumbled off in a clank of dust and fumes, they saw the bomb-damaged house it had emptied out gaping like a ribcage. Stairs leading nowhere, pictures hung on half-walls, hallways like torn throats. Luka shivered. "I wonder what the islands will be like," said Elena, lowering her voice and watching the wardens crawl through the guts of the ruined home. "Quiet," said Luka, grabbing his jeans to pull his weak leg onto the pavement. "They don't get bombing raids. There's no army there. It'll be quiet." "I hope there's rabbits and deer and things." "It's the countryside." "So?" "So of course there are. What do you think you're going to eat?" She hit his arm. "I never would." Hugo stopped to sniff a lamppost, then cocked his leg. "Will if you get hungry enough," Luka said over the rattle of dog pee. "You promised Mum. You need to eat, even if—" "I know, but there'll be enough veggies for me. I'm only little. And they must have powdered avocado and things." Luka shuddered. "Even real avocado was yuck. It was green. You won't remember." They walked a moment in silence, footsteps shadowed by the rasp of Luka's dragging foot. "I wish you could come with me," Elena said. Luka bit the inside of his lip. "I know, but I'm too old. 10 was the cutoff. I missed it by miles." "By a year." "You'll be fine. You're always fine." "I hope so," said Elena softly. Luka touched the top of her head, then checked his phone. "I'm out of minutes. How long till the train leaves?" "You always use your rations straight away," said Elena, her eyebrow curving in a way that reminded Luka of their mother. "I know, but I can't get used to it. Or the curfew. I mean, switching off data and Wi-Fi at sundown. It's not fair." "You never know who's listening," said Elena, imitating the voice from the advert as she checked her own phone. "It's fine," she said. "We've got 4 minutes, so we don't need to—" "4? We need to run! Come on!" He pushed her gas mask and bag into her hands and ran unevenly behind her into the old town, slipping on the slobber of a window cleaner's wash as he landed on the cobbles. "Luka!" shouted Elena, turning to wait for him as Hugo barked and ran in circles. "Come on!" "No, you keep going," said Luka, scrambling to his feet. "You can't miss it." They ran toward the clock tower, Hugo bounding ahead as they weaved through greasy food stalls and sign-waving protesters, between cables pooled behind the pop-up barracks, and finally, gasping so much the air felt like thumbs pressing into their windpipes, down the train station's big, wide steps. Elena stopped so suddenly, Luka ran into her. "Ow!" he said. "Why did you—" Central Station was a hive of neat soldiers and nervous children, their energies swirling under the glass roof in a shrill piano wire pitch. He took his sister's hand. "You're on Platform 9, he said stiffly. She nodded, and they moved into the throng. All the parents had been called up to fight or pressed into service, so the farewells had fallen to the older children who, prematurely aged by the war's strange freedoms and responsibilities, had become a colony of miniature grown-ups in the city's great hive. Government flags hung from the old clock, ration posters plastered the chicory coffee shop, and 1,000 children cried and stared and babbled into phones, bug-eyed gas masks hanging around their necks. They stood under the vast departure boards, bathing in the pale light of distant places, the highlands, islands, and lakesides to which they were being sent, as far from Bellum City's bomb-stinking chaos as could be imagined. An official war effort message pushed the timetables aside on the board. "Be careful with the posts you make. Your family's fate could be at stake." Luka felt his pocket buzz with the matching text as they pushed toward Elena's platform. He wanted to say something, to say everything, but his thoughts were too hot and too fast, and the words stuck in his neck in a solid, painful lump. "Ellie," he managed as they arrived at Elena's platform, "I wanted to—" "You need to promise me something," she cut him off, glancing over her shoulder. "Anything, of course, You need to feed the faeries when I'm gone." Luka closed his eyes. "We've talked about this. You're 8. It's time you—" "I'm not making it up," Ellie whispered, grabbing his arm. "You do magic too, so—" "Mine's not magic," said Luka. He pressed his coin into the palm of his right hand, then appeared it from behind her ear. "They're tricks. I make them happen. If I could do real magic, I'd stop the war and you could stay." Elena let out a single sob, but wiped her cheeks and pulled him close. "Feeding fairies is the same thing. My offering makes the magic happen, and they get so angry if they don't get their food." "Maybe it's different now there's a war on." She shook her head. "They don't care what's happening in our world, they just want food. You have to feed them. You have to. Promise me." "Ellie, I don't—" Luka pulled at his hair. "Promise," she hissed. Luka opened his mouth to protest. Then he saw the look in her eyes. "All right," he said. "I will, if it makes you happy." She gave him a quick, strong hug. "Tonight, then," she whispered, bending to scratch Hugo's ear. "Put a bowl of bread and milk outside my window." She threw her arms around him. "I love you." "Ellie," he said, blinking away the lightheadedness that tingled up from his feet. Elena pushed through the barrier, where a warden held a scanner under her thumb. As she boarded the train, the screen above Luka flashed bright red, and he gripped his coin so tightly that he gasped at the pain. In a few seconds, the world had changed. He'd become a boy whose sister had been evacuated, whose family was incomplete. A boy the war had begun to squeeze with all its might. Elena was gone. He would walk back through the city alone. Luka felt the first prickle of the realization that she really was being taken away, that he would not see her or hear her voice. What if he never saw her again? Elena turned from the top step. Her skin was olive like his, her hair dark and straight like his, and she seemed, to Luka, to be as perfect and small as she had ever been. She looked at him and mouthed, "Feed the fairies." "I will, I promise. But you be safe," shouted Luka, ignoring the heads that turned in his direction and the tears that sprang to his eyes. "Just be safe." She climbed on board, and a moment later the door clicked shut. Hugo whined. Luka opened his phone and read the war effort text, focusing on the words, "Your family's fate." The train slid under the station's roof of iron and glass, and he waved the palmed coin over his left hand, appearing the silver disc as if by magic, then passed his right hand back across his palm. The coin vanished. Luka plunged his empty hand into the fur on Hugo's neck and watched until the train disappeared between domino tower blocks, its windows bright with the hard winter sky.